world was focused on climate change,
Yeah.
and I sense it turning more to, okay, how are we going to meet our energy needs, and are they affordable?
Hey folks, Flo here with Scaling Up. I'm here with Michael McAdams of the the U.S. Advanced Biofuels Association. I knew I was going to stumble upon that one, but you won't stumble. So I'd like to first look back on the U.S. bioeconomy strategy, which I believe is from 2011, 2012, and it's been more than a decade.
We actually started in 2005,
Okay.
right? And so in 2005, we passed the first renewable fuel standard, which granted a 12 billion gallon biofuels mandate for ethanol and other biofuels by 2012. And so when you think about it, Jimmy Carter was the first one in history to try to help kick off biofuels. And he gave a tax benefit to the ethanol industry to try to get them started. And it took between 1978 and 2002 for the ethanol guys to get to 2 billion gallons. And when we passed that statute in 2005, we went to 12 billion gallons of ethanol by 2011. A major accomplishment.
Huge difference, yeah.
And so then in 2007, Nancy Pelosi became the speaker, and she really wanted to focus on carbon reduction. And so now we have RFS2 that comes into play. And RFS2 creates 4 different separate pools in which it was trying to deliver 36 billion gallons. Now, when you think about how much gasoline we were using, how much diesel we were using, how much jet fuel we were using, that's a significant number. And we hit our high water mark in the United States in 2018 for gasoline demand, 148 billion, 500 million gallons. Last year, that was 136 billion, 500 million gallons. Because of the electric vehicles, because of CAFE, because of changes of culture in cities.
COVID?
COVID too. COVID was that killed all the demand. But that line is continuing to go down, and so the ethanol industry is looking for new opportunities, right, to take what is now a 17 billion gallon industry in the U.S., one of the largest in the world, right, other than Brazil, and redirect that to make synthetic aviation fuel in our future, which is, we still need to get the policy right so that it's aligned between the programs and the agencies. The guys in the Treasury Department have a different kind of way of thinking than the guys at EPA. And we're going to, as an industry, going to have to work really hard in 2025 to make sure that the tax credits actually support the RFS program, but the RFS program has to go forward and the mandates have to be raised to actually reflect the number of gallons that we're making.
Okay, so let's talk about politics in 2025, and first maybe looking a little bit at Biden's action, because I believe there's been an executive order in 2022, I believe, and more recently some updates, and it seems like you're not too happy about them.
Well, President Biden was very focused on electrifying the vehicles. And at one point, he actually suggested giving $3 billion to Elon Musk under the RFS program, and he's never made a fuel in his life. And so they finally took that rule down. Then they undershot the RVO programs in 23 to try to lower the cost of the program so the price of gas would go down. So he really wasn't a friend of the bioeconomy. Wow. Hence, he lost every single Midwest state that mattered.
In the last election?
The last election.
Wow.
And so it was deep, it was wide, it was pervasive, and people just didn't like his programs.
That's a surprise to me, to be honest. I mean, from the outside, it kind of seems like
the environmental community loved him. The industry and people who actually make money and provide jobs.
Just not the biofuels folks.
Do it. Yeah.
So what about Trump then? He'll be in his position in about 2 months?
He's going to be a challenge because he's turning all the tables upside down on purpose.
Okay.
So we're not going to have a normal government, and it's going to be centralized in a way we've never seen in the history of the country. But I think there's an opportunity there because at the end of the day, what he's going to do is he's going to focus on energy security. And we with an all-the-above strategy, support that kind of doctrine.
Okay.
And I think if we work with them correctly, in addition to all the things he's going to do to try to increase our overall production, and we're the #1 producer of oil in the world right now, over 13 billion gallons a day.
Which is relatively new, right? That's in the last decade or so.
So the last 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very significant, and I'm hopeful and optimistic, because I have to be as a lobbyist, that we can show them the way to actually deliver more economic prosperity for the American people with this program.
Now, you must travel the world. I'm imagining to Europe and perhaps to Asia and other parts of the world. What is the state of the bioeconomy in other parts of the world, and what role does the U.S. have to play in it?
Yeah, so the U.S. has always been a leader, and that's going to change a little bit because the world was focused on climate change, and I sense it turning more to, okay, how are we going to meet our energy needs, and are they affordable? And that is exactly the conversation Mr. Trump's going to tee up. And so I think we have all these forums now, the G7, the G20, and
the G7 will be in Canada next year.
Yeah, and so I'm working with all types of people and all types of industries to try to help people figure out how to make that transition over time to lower the overall cost of carbon reduction. Remember, if I had to leave you with a point, never in the history of the world have we ever paid for the externalities as customers or consumers, right? And so now we have to, if we're really going to get serious about carbon reduction, we have to count all the carbon. It should be progressively rewarded in terms of reductions, and we should try to take the low-hanging fruit and use an all-of-the-above strategy.
Makes sense. And your perspective on Canada, I mean, you're obviously not here for the first time, but what role do you see for Canada as an ally to the U.S. in the bioeconomy?
I'm just going to say I'm very concerned at the announcement last night about the 25%. Canada, if you poll Americans, the #1 company that Americans believe is their best friend is Canada. Over 70%. And so I am working with your folks here in Ottawa and your organizations in Ottawa to do things at the G20 and G7 level where the industries that we represent are aligned, and we'll be talking to the governments.
What do you tell Canadians to reassure them? Because it is pretty daunting. I mean, obviously the U.S. is by far our largest trading partner, export partner.
Well, we got to come together, because when you look at the Western Hemisphere, we are the Saudi Arabia of biofuels. And so,
North America or the U.S.?
The West.
The West overall.
The Western Hemisphere, Brazil, Mexico, U.S., Canada, right? And so those companies need to knock off the trade wars, and we need to work together, because the world is looking for the fuels we're making. And in all the above strategy, we're the cheapest bang for the buck in the world.
Thank you very much. What a great punchy line to end on. Michael, it's a pleasure speaking with you.
Done it before.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I can tell.